Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyden. Taking a look at tonight's 8-game slate on FanDuel and DraftKings. Uh, Not a super appealing slate. At least we have pitching options, which I think I always at least like.
Yeah, you could make a case for the majority of the pitching options on tonight's slate, so that makes things a little interesting, makes it a little more difficult to find stacks and things like that. But there are some good plays as far as hitters go tonight, and so looks like an okay slate if you really dig deep enough.
First one here. These are probably two pitchers that you don't have any interest in, but we'll get to the good ones here. Royals Rays. You got Ryan Yarbrough versus Eric Skoglund. I definitely don't mind some bats in this game.
Yeah, like the thing with Yarbrough is like he hasn't been terrible this season. Like he's actually been pretty darn solid. I mean, he's got a decent strikeout rate. Um, but like I just don't want to go there tonight. There's other cheap options that I think are going to be a little bit better just because this guy's only going to go like 4 or 5 innings. And this Royals team has looked a little bit better recently, so not someone that I'm really looking to target here. And of course, Skoglund escaped the Orioles start without being too terribly exposed, but still not someone that I'm looking at.
No, I like some of the Rays bats here. Like they're cheap. I don't know if a lot of people are going to go this way just because the Rays, but I mean, obviously guys like CJ Cron still stand out to me. You know, he's cheap, 3,600 on DK tonight, 260 ISO against lefties dating back to last year. And you mentioned Scotland. The guy is just ton of hard contact, mediocre ground ball guy, doesn't miss a ton of bats. You know, the Rays have a good shot here, but, you know, once again, it's still the Rays.
I wish it was a little bit of a better park here for Tampa Bay. Obviously, we've seen them heat up whenever they get outside of some of these hitters or pitchers' parks. But yeah, CJ Cron definitely a guy that stands out. I mean, just a ton of power against lefties dating back to last season, and Skoglund, a guy 199 ISO against right-handed hitters dating back to last year, 372 WOBA allowed. He's really bad against lefties too, 395 WOBA allowed. So I don't even mind the lefties that get in that lineup. But CJ Cron, Wilson Ramos, two guys that I'm definitely looking at here, and even Johnny Field down at the bottom of that lineup. We saw Johnny Field yesterday. We saw Johnny throw yesterday, and tonight we might get Johnny hit.
Oh, that was bad. I didn't think it was going to be that
bad. I told you I had a really, really, really bad Johnny Field pun queued up, and so I was waiting. I missed on the delivery a little bit. I'll do better next time.
I don't even want to do the rest of this pod. That was so good.
But I mean, he's still an option. Like, I mean, what, 318 ISO? I mean, very, very limited sample size. We're talking 23 plate appearances dating back to last season, but 318 ISO, 408 WOBA against lefties.
Yeah. I mean, I think these Rays bats are there. Like, whoever leads off, I'll have some interest in. Carlos Gomez do back here. Like, he's a guy usually I like to target more against righties, but I don't mind him just because Skoglund is so bad.
Yeah, for sure. And like Echeverria is a guy you can look at. Daniel Robertson, any of these guys that get in that lineup, like I don't think anyone's going to use the Rays. They'll be a very unpopular stack, and like they're not terribly priced across the industry.
No, they're not. I think maybe highest owned guy would maybe be like a Cron or Ramos, but it's still nothing that's 15% tops.
Yeah, I would guess that Ramos is probably the highest owned guy.
No. Royal side, if I was taking anyone here, look at Yarbrough. Lefties have been the ones who hit him a little bit harder. I still do like, Jorge Soler here, Whit Merrifield, just two guys that have so much power against left-handers. Merrifield, 229 ISO dating back to last year. Soler, obviously, who's really found himself this year, 286 ISO. Guys I'd use here, kind of pretty much it.
Yeah, I wouldn't overlook, Mike Moustakas in the spots. Not great numbers this season against lefties, or like a 123 ISO, really low WOBA, but numbers dating back to last year, 301 WOBA, so decent numbers there. And he's hitting lefties really, really hard, like a 40% hard contact rate. So he's someone that I would at least look at, especially given that like Yarbrough's numbers against lefties this year, 378 WOBA allowed, 333 ISO allowed, and that's actually dating back to last season.
And Moustakas, reasonable contact rate guy as well, like 77% against lefties dating back to last year. Kind of surprising to me, actually, right now.
Yeah, and then you can even look at like a guy Abraham Almonte may get in towards the bottom of that lineup. Alcides Escobar, who is actually a somewhat decent hitter against lefties. You could look at him too.
Next one here, Oakland and Boston. Sean Manaea taking on Rick Porcello. I feel like Rick Porcello literally just pitched like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, but unfortunately he didn't, because if he did, then that would be awesome for the A's because they'd get Porcello on short rest. But this is an interesting game from both sides. Like, I actually have interest in both of these pitchers, I think.
I do too. I like them both in GPPs. I just think, Carrasco, and I like Corbin a little bit as well. I definitely think there's some upside for these guys. I kind of look and go, I could make some cases for a lot of bats here as well.
Yeah, you could. I mean, digging into the pitchers, obviously, if you would want to start with like Sean Manaea, like he has not looked good the last couple of starts. I expect him to be better though. Like he abandoned a couple of his pitches, and I went into the adjustments that he made in the pitching article, so I don't want to go too deep for those of you that are subscribed and read the pitching article. But like he made some adjustments the last 2 starts. I think he's gonna abandon those and go back to the way he was pitching before. And this Boston team against left-handed pitching this season has just been terrible. Like 24% strikeout rate, 78 WRC plus, sub 30% hard contact rate, and like they have guys that should hit lefties really well, like Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, Hanley. Like, I know those guys have video game numbers against lefties, like looking back to last year, but just hasn't really come to fruition that much this season. So some of it's probably been a little bit unlucky. I would venture to say with some of the hard contact rates for like JD Martinez and Hanley and a couple of these other guys that it has been a little bit unlucky, but until that comes to fruition, like I'm still going to take lefties against them in tournaments.
Yeah, I think it really is. It's those guys that you mentioned. It's just Benintendi's been awful against lefties. I wouldn't be surprised to see him out of the lineup tonight. Guys like JBJ, Eduardo Nunez, Devers, like all the catchers have been awful against lefties. So like it does make sense when you look at it. The bats that I would have interest are obviously like Betts and Hamley and Bogarts and Martinez. I mean, most of those guys expected WOBAs over 500 against lefties this season. It's just the power hasn't been there for, guys like outside of Mookie.
Yeah, for sure. Like Mookie's the guy that I'm most worried about in this spot, obviously, just because he continues to be one of the best hitters in baseball this season, and like the numbers are just insane. Like so far this season against lefties, 568 ISO, 555 WOBA, dating back to last season, 291 ISO, 420 WOBA. Mentioned JD Martinez, obviously the numbers dating back to last year, 421 ISO, 503 WOBA, hasn't necessarily been there this year, so we'll see if that continues tonight or if he breaks out. But again, Manaea is the guy that I have interest in tournaments only.
Yeah, definitely some strikeout upside. Martinez got a little hot over the weekend. A couple homers. Could get going here.
He definitely could.
So, and Bogarts, I don't mind some Bogarts here as well. Especially, shortstop's pretty thin.
Yeah, it really is.
So, Oakland side of things here, Porcello, I really do just feel like you have to look at 2018 stats instead of dating back to last year, just because he's been a different pitcher.
Yeah, he has. I don't know at this point which one I believe in. If I believe in like the 2017 or the 2018, this is a good spot for him if you believe in the 2018 stuff. And I mean, he has changed his pitch approach a little bit against an A's team that is strikeout heavy. I mean, 24% against right-handed pitching. The biggest downside is the fact that they hit the ball really freaking hard, like a 40% hard contact rate. And some of these guys have like 50% and above hard contact rate against right-handed pitching. So a little concerning, but I think he's the safer option as far as like cash games go than Manaea in this spot.
I do too. Like, guy's an innings eater. I don't mind him here. A little unlucky against New York. Like you said, the only guys like I think you really got to watch out for is obviously like Jed Lowry and Chris Davis and Matt Olson. I think those are the guys I'd be looking to use here. Maybe a Matt Chapman. There's some upside in some of these power bats, but Porcello's been a guy getting a ton of ground balls from the right side, 60% this year. His strikeout stuff is up. I'm definitely okay with using him here tonight, and a reasonable step down from the Carrascos and Corbins as well.
Yeah, he is a cheaper option to consider here. If I was looking at anyone, it would probably be the guys that you mentioned, Jed Lowry, who continues to be just excellent so far this season. Chris Davis, Matt Olson, Joyce would be the guys that I would look at.
Next one here, we got Cleveland and Detroit. Mike Fiers taking on Carlos Carrasco. I have to imagine Carrasco's the chalk option here tonight, just against a Detroit team that it's kind of unrecognizable right now.
Yeah, Carrasco is obviously going to be one of the top options on the slate, and unless you're just fading the chalk, there's really no reason to be too terribly concerned about him. This Detroit team, while they're not a strikeout heavy team against right-handed pitching, only 21% this season, there's just not a lot of power, and they're banged up. Like, they could be without Heimer Candelario and Nick Castellanos, and they already have Cabrera on the DL. So there's a lot of bats out of that lineup that you would normally consider as power guys. So it's a very interesting spot for Carrasco. Like, I think the biggest thing for him is the fact that he tends to go really deep into games. Like, they don't have a huge, like a long or a short leash on him. Like, we've seen him several times this season go 110, 115 pitches, go the complete game. And so that's a huge bonus for him, especially in tournaments, if he's able to get you that, 35, 40 fantasy points, which he's done several times this season.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't care about lefties or righties. For him, Carrasco's been very solid against both sides of the plate, under a 300 WOBA dating back to last year. He is a guy who can notch some strikeouts against lefties as well, 27%, 28% against righties. It's a guy every now and then, like, he'll run into home run trouble, and that's kind of what derails him at times, but I don't see that really here tonight.
I don't really either. There's, like I said, with Castellanos potentially not being in the lineup, Candelario, who I actually think might hit the DL. I think he got an MRI over the weekend, so we'll have to wait and see on that. There's just not a lot of guys you worry about in that lineup, except for like Victor Martinez, and he's kind of a shell of himself, and John Hicks. Yeah.
And not to mention, he's probably going to have a ton of run support tonight.
He very well could, yes.
So let's dive into Cleveland. Cleveland's definitely going to be a chalky option here tonight. I'm okay with eating some chalk for some of these guys, just against Fiers. 354 WOBA, 225 ISO dating back to last year against lefties, 346 WOBA, 202 ISO to righties. You could sign me up. I think if you want to get contrarian, I think you can look at even some of these back half guys if like the right lefties get into the lineup.
Yeah, obviously you have to consider Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez with just how freaking on fire those two guys have been. Like, they've just been blasting the ball recently. We saw Jose Ramirez just go bananas over like the past week. Lindor is another guy that's just been on fire recently. Prices are elevated a little bit, but I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with eating the chalk on those two. I think one interesting pivot, like, I would expect that E5 is going to be the popular first base option from this team, and I think I would definitely pivot to like Yonder Alonso. So far this season, 231 ISO against right-handed pitching, and this isn't a power surge. This isn't a guy that is going to this isn't a regression type guy. Like, this is something that he showed the first half of last season, was banged up in the second half of last season. He's just an entirely different hitter than what we've normally seen from him. So I absolutely love him in this spot. And then Brantley, another guy that's been freaking on fire recently. So you have your four guys there if you want to stack Alonso, Ramirez, Brantley, and Lindor. But Greg Allen, Yan Gomes, even Jason Kitten is towards the bottom of that lineup if that's where he's going to bat is interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I like the Alonso call. 495 WOBA, 43 ISO against fastballs in the 89 mile per hour range. And that goes with the rest of the Indians who all matched it as well. And I like using Alonso and Encarnacion together on FanDuel a lot.
Yeah, and I mentioned Jason Kipnis down towards the bottom of that lineup potentially. 313 ISO dating back to 2016 against that fastball that you mentioned.
Yeah, all those guys just eat. So going to be a team that we definitely want to get some exposure to. I'm very well okay with the chalk there.
Yeah, me too.
Seattle, Minnesota. I definitely think this is the other offensive game that I'm going to be looking at a little bit more than some of the others. I think as far as potential goes for a high-scoring game, this has it a little bit more.
It very well could. It's definitely an interesting spot to attack. I think both sides are in play as far as bats go. I'm not looking at Oda Rizzi or Wade LeBlanc in the spot as far as pitching goes.
No, I'm not either. Seattle lost, Robinson Cano over the weekend, going to be out for quite some time. It still doesn't depreciate the Seattle lineup a whole lot. Like, he hasn't been doing a ton this year anyway, and like you kind of look, this is just still a really deep lineup that's very solid.
It is a very deep lineup, and you're going to get like Austin Romine batting probably ninth. That's going to replace Cano in that lineup. There's your value option if you really need one tonight. But pretty much everyone from this lineup against Odorizzi is in play. Like I know Odorizzi has historically been a reverse splits guy, dating back to last season, 39.3% hard contact to righties. As far as the WOBA allowed, it has started to balance out a little bit. And I think if you look at this season alone, I think the hard contact has actually started to balance out a little bit too, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's like 35% to lefties, 32% to righties.
Yeah, so it's like he's just bad overall, and it's not necessarily as much of a reverse split. Like I think if people are still calling him a reverse splits pitcher, you're going to get like the Healey's, the Hanigers, and the Seguras and the Cruzes being popular, and people might overlook the D Gordons and the Seagers and the Ben Gamels and guys like that.
Seager's on a tear right now.
Yeah, he is, and it's really tough to fade him whenever he gets hot like this. But haven't his best games actually come against lefties recently?
Jay Happ, I know that for sure.
It was Hap, and it was yesterday against. I don't remember who was pitching yesterday against Detroit. It was
Is it Liriano?
no, he's tomorrow.
Oh.
I can't remember who was pitching yesterday for Detroit, but it was a lefty.
Let me go in.
Let me look and see.
As we all try and dive into this. Blaine Hardy.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I should be able to remember that because I wrote a stacking against him, and I was Kyle Seager's probably not going to hit 2 home runs against Blaine Hardy, but he's still a good play against the lefty. And then he comes up in like his first or second at bat homers.
And all these like Mariners bats are still too cheap. Like they're all mid to low 4Ks or upper threes. And, I like even digging down to like the Mike Zuninos and I like the Ben Gamel. I would always be interested to see if they rolled like D Gordon back at second base for some time.
They might. They very well could because Austin or Andrew Romine. I called him Austin Romine earlier. Andrew Romine is not a very good baseball player.
Watch out for that Romine lettuce out there. It'll get you.
Yeah, it'll definitely get you.
I like these bats. I like Cruz and Haniger, two power options I like. I like Segura a lot here at 3.9. I feel like that's a pretty depreciated price for the matchup.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a very, very good spot for him.
So, Minnesota side of things here, look at LeBlanc. This is a guy, when you look at right-handers, it looks like he's fairly solid against them. I'm still not buying into it. Like 285 ISO day back to last year, 40%, fly ball rate, 34% ground ball rate, hard contact rate. His fastball, like he's just getting so lucky with his fastball right now, and I think that has to even out at some point.
It probably will, and like the thing is like even if he is okay, like he's still probably going to go like 60 pitches, so he may not even go very deep in this game. So you can still stack against him, I think, with even some of the lefties in the spot. But man, Byron Buxton, like I know Byron Buxton is a guy that's always going to strike out a ton, but he's like 3K on DraftKings. That's a really cheap price for him in the spot.
And a guy who did a lot of damage against lefties, towards the last few months of last season.
Yeah, he's a guy that like really, really raked against him. And man, LeBlanc's throwing like, what is he, like 87-mile-an-hour fastball, and it's only 4 batted ball events for Buxton, but 200 ISO against the pitch since 2016.
Yeah. I like the writers here, and I do like some of the lefties, like you said. Like, Eddie Rosario is going to be a guy that I take a look at. Eduardo Escobar has been on fire. Guy you can continue to just kind of keep using here. I mean, against lefties this season, 345 ISO, 412 WOBA. Brian Dozier mashes changeups, which is also something that LeBlanc throws like 30% of the time. The weird thing is this Dozier, small sample size, doesn't mash like the low velocity fastball that well.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm going to throw that out as just a small sample size thing. What is it, 19 batted ball events? So I don't know. I'm willing to throw that out the window a little bit, but he's still just a great play here. And don't overlook someone like Ehire Adrianza if he's down towards the bottom of that lineup. Even like Lomo, someone that you can look at.
Yeah, because I mean, LeBlanc's actually giving up a 188 ISO to lefties this season.
Yeah, and
202 dating back to last year.
yeah, 347 Woba to lefties dating back to last year too. So that puts like Lomo as someone that could be a very very low owned good first base option.
Yeah, so definitely some options there, and all of them are pretty reasonably priced as well.
Yeah, they are.
Next game, you got Milwaukee and Arizona. Patrick Corbin take on Junior Guerra. Corbin, I definitely don't mind here. I still find like I might kind of go with some other options because of the price tag.
Yeah, I went in depth a little bit about him, talking about the lower velocity and things like that in the pitching article. He says he's fine. The numbers, like I know the velocity's down, but like everything else suggests that he's still fine. And it could just be an adjustment that he's making and throwing at a lower velocity. I don't hate him in the spot. Like I am a little bit worried about the strikeout upside because the Brewers 20.7% strikeout rate this season against right-handed pitch or left-handed pitching. Um, but like, there's just nobody in this lineup that I'm terribly worried about in the spot outside of like Jesus Aguilar, that I think is really going to get to him because of the pitches that he's throwing. Like he's throwing that slider a lot, and that's a pitch like the Brewers are just so bad against.
Yeah, I mean the contact rates are super low. Some of these guys have some decent ISO numbers against lefties, and that's kind of where I think maybe Corbin runs into a little bit of trouble with some of these power bats, like if like Domingo Santana gets in the lineup or like Braun or Aguilar, and obviously Lorenzo Cain's just sick against left-handed pitching. So I do worry a little bit here. I do think actually Milwaukee could be somewhat contrarian stacked tonight, and like deep field GPPs just because they're going to be low owned.
I guess. I mean, the thing is like, yeah, they have good power numbers against the pitch, but they have to be making contact for that power to actually, come into play. And they're not making very much contact with them, and their whiff rates are ridiculously high. Their swinging strike rates are high. So that's why I think Corbin is going to be okay in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is strikeout upside. I don't know. I'm not going to pay 12.7 for Corbin when Carrasco's a little bit cheaper and like Porcello's 2,000 cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things. Like I'm fine using either one, and you can probably use both on 2SP sites if enough value opens up.
Yeah, like I said, I like the Aguilar call. He'd be the guy that I look at here, and then Cain as well.
Yeah, those would be the two bats that I'm most worried about.
Arizona side of things here, man. This lineup. I mean, Goldschmidt continues to really struggle. It's Ben Pollock. I will say David Peralta has been a little bit interesting. He's below 4K. He's only 3.8. I don't mind some of these bats. They're fairly cheap. I just feel like people are going to be disappointed if they attack Guerra for some reason.
I hope not. Like I have interest in some of these guys. Like whereas a guy dating back to last season, 208 ISO allowed to righties, 201 allowed to lefties. So decent power numbers allowed, and then you're going to get like Peralta, Pollock in there. Good options here. Descalso, Nick Ahmed. Some of these guys have decent numbers against right-handed pitching. And then, of course, Goldschmidt. Obviously, I know like he's been really bad so far this season, but eventually he's going to break out and put up some big numbers. So I don't mind stacking these guys. I would look at Goldschmidt, Pollock, Souza. It's an interesting name. And then Descalso as a value option towards the top of that lineup.
Yeah, Souza, I think it's a nice GPP option here tonight, 3,800, especially against Guerra, who's not huge at missing bats.
No, he's really not. Like, he's not a guy that has a ton of strikeout potential, I don't think.
Houston, LA next here. You got Lance McCullers taking on Andrew Heaney. This seems like such a meh game to me.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in this game. Like, I don't know. The Astros, I think, are going to be popular because it seems like they always are. And Heaney is a guy giving up still, dating back to last season, a lot of hard contact to right-handed hitters, 46% of 401 WOBA allowed. I would be looking at some of those guys. Obviously, Springer, Correa, good options here. I don't know if I really want to go there tonight.
No, I don't think so. And I think as usually when we talk about Houston, like when it's chalk, like it's looking at some of the bottom half guys. Like I really actually like Alex Bregman in this spot quite a bit. Guy who hits sinkers really well and gets a ton of lift on him. 398 WOBA, 205 ISO, and just a 37% ground ball rate. It's obviously a pitch that he's going to throw probably about 60% of the time here.
Yeah, that would be one guy to look at. And like Springer, I think they said he should be good to go for this game, but I would still keep an eye on it. If he's not in the lineup, you might actually end up getting like a lefty in there, like a Derek Fisher, or you might even get like Jake Marisnick in there. It just depends on what lineup they roll out. Like Derek Fisher's a guy that's a little bit interesting if he does make the lineup against Heaney in this spot, but I don't know. Bregman, Correa, Marwin would be the guys that I would maybe look at the most.
Yeah, and like I don't mind a Correa either. Like 4,600 is a reasonable price for Correa against a lefty.
Yeah, it is, and Reddick's a guy. Like I know it's gonna be lefty on lefty, but like he's a guy in his career has kind of mashed ground ball pitchers.
Yeah. Other side of this one with McCullers, I don't mind McCullers and GPPs tonight. I think it's one of those things that's kind of like a wash for me though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I am a little bit worried about him here, especially at that price. Like he just hasn't been sharp recently. I mean, I know he struggled against the Yankees, he struggled against the Athletics, struggled against the White Sox. Like he just hasn't been sharp recently. I don't know that I would completely overlook an Angel stack in this spot.
Like I'm fine with targeting like on this slate alone, like targeting some of the offenses against these popular pitchers, like I'm definitely okay with, or some of the better pitchers because they are going to be low owned. And I find that McCullers is better off against lefties than righties, So I think with a righty heavy lineup, you got to find some guys that hit the curveball well because that's just something that he just throws so much of. And like obviously like Trout stands out, but like no one else really. I mean, Justin Upton 224 ISO, but 41% whiff rate, but McCullers is just, if that curveball's on, he's solid, but when he's off, he's just completely off.
Yeah, Trout's a very interesting name here, and so on that I don't think anyone's going to really look at here. I mean, 294 ISO, 407 WOBA, dating back to 2016, 55% hard contact rate against that pitch. That's some pretty impressive numbers. You mentioned Upton. He's been on fire recently. I know he's got a really high whiff rate, but still a power bat you can consider. And Ian Kinsler, 206 ISO dating back to 2016. Another guy, like good contact numbers against the pitch, 84%, 15% whiff rate. So I don't hate going there. And then you could mix in like a Luis Valbuena maybe as a cheap option.
Yeah. And Cozart's kind of similar to like Kinsler where, decent contact rate, 75%, that 195 ISO, and he's been leading off lately.
Yeah, and he's actually, I think, looked a little bit better in that leadoff spot.
Yeah, I think he's just healthy is another thing too, because I think he was really kind of just banged up heading into the year.
Yeah, it very well could be just a health thing too.
Colorado, San Diego. Don't worry, this one's not in Coors. I got Tyler Anderson taking on Joey Lucchesi. Both are two viable pitchers here.
Both are two very viable pitchers. I went with Lucchesi in the pitching article, but I don't mind Tyler Anderson here. The biggest issue I have with Lucchesi is one, may not get the win. And two, they have shown no issues with pulling him early. Like he's gone basically 5 innings, maybe 5 2/3 in the majority of his outings. He's only hit 100 pitches once, hit 99 one time, and the rest they've limited his pitches. I think they're trying to limit his innings. Some of it could be related to the control issues that he's shown. I should say command issues, sorry, not control, because they're two different things. Like if that curve that he throws isn't working for him, like if he can't place the curve, he just doesn't care. Like he still throws it. And that leads to the walks and things like that. But there's potential here against a Rockies team that when you get outside of Coors and when you face lefties, they just aren't good. Like they strike out a lot. There's just not a lot of power. I think he has potential. Like, I mean, he's limited to what, like 1 earned run in 11 innings against him or something like that. So, or no, he's actually hasn't allowed an earned run in 11 innings against the Rockies. So he's already shut down this offense a couple times. So I think he can do it again.
Yeah, I do too. Like you said, I think for me, it's the only concern here is just the walks. It's kind of about it on both sides, and I think there's obviously strikeout upside on both sides. A couple one-offs here and there that you got to worry about, but for the most part, I mean, both these guys are reasonably priced. Which is 8,100, 7,500. I do find them more DK plays than FanDuel plays, I think.
Yeah, I don't really see a reason why you need to go there on FanDuel, but like on two SP sites, Yahoo, Fantasy Draft, DraftKings, they're both viable options. Like Anderson himself is not a terrible play here. Like he's been fairly decent outside of a couple games this season. Has shut down the Padres already, so like he's another guy that you can really look at here.
Yeah. One-offs, I wouldn't mind like Story or Arenado, usual power guys, but that's about it.
The only guy that I mean, I don't mind the righties against Anderson. 346 WOBA allowed.
It's Blackman, isn't it?
Say what?
Is it Blackman?
No, I was gonna say against Anderson.
Oh, against Anderson, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't mind the Christian Villanueva, Matt Caesar. The one guy that I really wish we could play tonight, and he's not in the player pool on any side, is Franmil Reyes. He should be in the lineup. Just a power guy. Like I think at one point in the minors he hit like 8 home runs in 5 games or something like that. Dude just has been raking. He's a prospect that's coming up. The Padres righties are going to be very unpopular, so there could be your very, very contrarian stack.
Blackman for some reason, 441 WOBA, 309 ISO against curveballs, dating back to 2016, 78% contact. I know he's been solid against lefties so far, but somewhat interesting is like a contrarian outfielder. Petco's not awful for lefty power either.
No, it's not, but I have concerns because that curveball isn't really a true curveball.
Yeah, it's non-traditional.
It's a curveball with like a changeup grip, so like it's not really a true curveball. But he would be one guy that I would maybe have some interest in if I wanted to be really, really different.
Yeah. Cincinnati, San Francisco, you got Sal Romano taking on Chris Stratton. I don't know what to make of this game here. Like this is just a game where I feel like some offense could be had, but I feel like this is also going to be one where it's going to be pretty rather low scoring too.
It very well could, because like I know the Reds heated up a little bit in that Dodgers series, and the Giants had a good game yesterday against Ivan Nova, but the Giants have just been terrible, so bad recently. Maybe it helps them actually getting back home. Like it doesn't make a lot of logical sense to move from like a couple of hitting environments like they've been in prior to the Phillies series, prior to the Pittsburgh series. But maybe getting back home will help them. But Sal Romano is a guy I actually put in my pitching article. Like, I think this is a spot, especially at his price, like in tournaments, very interesting option here. He started to pitch a little bit better. And like I said, this Giants team is so bad. Like some of the issues that Romano has had, mostly the hard contact to righties has actually come down a little bit this season. So he's a guy that I have some interest in tournaments.
Because he's done that slider, actually he's kind of cooled off on it a little bit in 2018, but a guy, obviously we do like taking guys that throw that slider a little bit. So if he leans on that, I think there is definitely some potential here. If he relies on that fastball, I'm a little bit more worried, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, I think that's actually something I noted in the pitching article when I looked at him. But like he's doing a decent job of generating some ground balls as well, a little bit more this season. And I mean, it's a good park for him. So I have no issues going there. And on the flip side, like I don't really have issues going with Chris Stratton against a Phillies team that we know or a Reds team that we know can kind of be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys are both viable like SB2 options just because their price tags and the ballpark helps out quite a bit. And the offense has obviously been below average this year. You get these guys to go 5-6 innings, at these prices, pick up, 4, 5, 6 strikeouts, limit some damage, like they'll definitely be fine.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could definitely see both going like 6 innings, maybe 5, 6 strikeouts, give up an earned run, and maybe notch a win, and that gets you on DraftKings like 20 plus fantasy points.
Yeah. I kind of do have a little more interest in like the Reds lefties, I think, than the Giants lefties though in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's Joey Votto obviously in a very good spot, but Jesse Winker is a guy that I have a lot of interest in just because price is really, really cheap across the industry.
Yeah. Scooter Jeanette's another one. He's 4K second base, got some power upside. Even like a Scott Schebler, like I don't mind here. Just Stratton's hard contact is still up like through the roof this season.
Yeah, it is. And if you look dating back to last season, 334 WOBA allowed to lefties. Let's see, what is it this season?
It's down a little bit, but I think he's been rather lucky. The ISO's up this year.
Yeah, the ISO numbers are up this year. So, yeah, if I was stacking anyone from this side of the game, it would be the Reds side.
Yeah, and I don't think there was really anyone that stood out from the Giants. Like I think there's just too many first base options that I would rather use over like a Brandon Belt, but like a Brandon Crawford's a okay option, I guess here.
It would be whoever's really cheap and in that lineup. If I was looking at anyone like Gregor Blanco, Hanson, Austin Jackson, just the cheap bats that if you need as like some one-off value bats.
Yeah, this is like the worst late slate ever.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, there's not a lot of options in that late slate, so majority of my bats are probably going to be within the first few games.
Yeah.
So, home run calls. What do you got?
Let me go with Jose Ramirez, and I'm going to go on the same side of that game, Yonder Alonso.
Ooh. I'm gonna go Brian Dozier, and I'm gonna go Mike Zunino.
I dig it. Love me some Zunino.
That's it for us. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. You can check out Brent's pitching article, my stacking article up for today, cheat sheets as well, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Good luck tonight.